Hello, today we're going to review the fundamental rules for transporting hazardous materials on Colorado highways. Here are the key questions for the Colorado Hazmat CDL exam. What agency in Colorado enforces hazardous materials transportation regulations on state highways? The Colorado State Patrol, CSB, in coordination with federal PHMSA and FMCSA rules. You may encounter CSB inspections at any point on the road. Always have your documents in order. Let's continue. What federal regulation governs hazardous materials transportation by road in Colorado? 49 CFR Parts 100 to 185, the Hazardous Materials Regulations, HMR, administered by PHMSA. Federal law sets the floor. Colorado may add requirements on top of it. Next question. Does Colorado require a state-specific hazmat permit in addition to the federal CDL hazmat endorsement? Yes, certain hazmat loads require a Colorado oversize, overweight, or hazardous materials permit depending on the material and route. Your federal endorsement is necessary, but it's not always sufficient. Always verify state permit requirements before your trip. Let's move on. What Colorado-specific requirement applies to drivers transporting hazmat through mountain passes? Drivers must comply with CDOT chain laws and seasonal restrictions that can affect hazmat routes through mountain corridors. Colorado's mountain roads are unpredictable. Check conditions before every trip through the Rockies. Continuing. What is the minimum age to obtain a CDL with hazmat endorsement in Colorado? 21 years old for interstate commerce, 18 for intrastate only. Age requirements exist because hazmat driving demands maturity, experience, and sound judgment. Next point. What background check is required to obtain a hazmat endorsement on a Colorado CDL? A TSA security threat assessment, including fingerprinting and a criminal history check. This step protects the public. There are no shortcuts when it comes to national security. Let's keep going. How often must a Colorado CDL hazmat endorsement holder renew the TSA threat assessment? Every 5 years. Mark your renewal date well in advance. Letting it lapse means losing your endorsement. Next question. Who is not eligible to obtain a hazmat endorsement in Colorado? A person who is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, or who has certain felony convictions within the past 7 years. The TSA screening process is thorough. Honesty on your application is essential. Let's continue. What document must accompany every hazmat shipment transported in Colorado? A shipping paper with the proper shipping name, UN identification number, hazard class, packing group, and emergency contact number. Without complete shipping papers, you should not move the load. Full stop. Next point. Where must the shipping papers be located when the driver is inside the vehicle, within immediate reach of the driver, in the seat or door pouch? In an emergency, first responders need to access those papers instantly. Let's move on. Where must shipping papers be placed when the driver is out of the vehicle? In clear view on the driver's seat. Even when you step away, emergency personnel must be able to find the papers without entering the cab. Continuing. What is the proper shipping name, PSN, and why is it important? The official name of a hazardous material listed in the hazmat table, used to identify the material on shipping papers, placards, and labels. Using the wrong name is a violation. Always use the exact name from the hazmat table, no substitutions. Next question. What are the 9 hazard classes in which covers explosives? Class 1 explosives, Class 2 gases, Class 3 flammable liquids, Class 4 flammable solids, Class 5 oxidizers, Class 6 toxic, Class 7 radioactive, Class 8 corrosive, Class 9 miscellaneous. Memorize all 9 classes, they will absolutely appear on your exam. Let's keep going. What is the difference between Division 1.1 and Division 1.4 explosives? Division 1.1 are mass explosion hazard explosives. Division 1.4 are minor explosion hazard with effects largely confined to the package. The lower the division number, the greater the danger. Treat all explosives with maximum caution. Next point. What placard is required when transporting any amount of Division 1.1 explosives in Colorado? An EXPLOSIVES 1.1 placard on all 4 sides of the vehicle, regardless of quantity. With Division 1.1, there is no minimum threshold. Even one package requires full placarding. Let's continue. What is the packing group system and what does PGI indicate? Packing groups I, II, and III indicate degree of danger. PGI indicates the greatest danger and the most stringent packaging requirements. Think of it as a severity scale. PGI is the most dangerous, PGIII the least, but all must be handled properly. Next question. When is a dangerous placard allowed instead of individual class placards in Colorado? When transporting 2 or more categories of hazmat in non-bulk packaging totaling 1,001 pounds or more and no single category requires its own placard. The dangerous placard is a convenience option, but it comes with strict conditions. Let's move on. What quantity of a Table 1 hazmat material requires placarding regardless of weight? Any amount, even a single package, requires placarding for Table 1 materials such as explosives, poison inhalation hazards, and radioactive materials. With Table 1 materials, quantity is irrelevant. If you have it, you placard it. Continuing. What quantity of a Table 2 hazmat material triggers the placarding requirement? 1,001 pounds or more of Table 2 materials in a single vehicle. Know the difference between Table 1 and Table 2 rules. This is a common exam question. Next point. What is a poison inhalation hazard (PIH) and what placard does it require? A material that is toxic when inhaled as a gas or vapor. It requires a poison inhalation hazard or toxic inhalation hazard placard in addition to any other required placard. PIH materials are among the most dangerous on the road. Extra placarding is mandatory, not optional. Let's keep going. What does the orange panel with a UN number displayed on a tank truck indicate? The top number is the Emergency Response Guide number and the bottom 4-digit number is the UN identification number of the material. First responders use those numbers to identify what they're dealing with in seconds. Accuracy is critical. Next question. What is the Emergency Response Guidebook (ERG) and where must it be kept? A DOT publication providing first responder guidance for hazmat emergencies. It must be kept in the cab, accessible to the driver at all times. The ERG is your first line of reference in an emergency. Know how to use it before you need it. Let's continue. What is CHMTREC and when should a driver or first responder call it? CHMTREC is a 24-hour emergency response center at 1-800-424-9300 that provides technical guidance during hazmat incidents. Save that number. In a hazmat emergency, every second counts and CHMTREC can be the difference. Next point. What must a hazmat driver do immediately after discovering a leak or spill from the cargo? Stop safely away from people and ignition sources, keep others away, notify emergency services, and follow ERG guidance without attempting to repair the leak personally. Do not try to be a hero. Your job is to isolate, notify, and let trained responders take over. Let's move on. What are the Colorado-specific reporting requirements after a hazmat incident on a highway? Notify the National Response Center at 1-800-424-8802 and the Colorado State Patrol immediately if a reportable quantity is released. 2 calls, 2 agencies. Don't skip either one, both are required by law. Continuing. What is a reportable quantity (RQ) in hazmat transportation? A specific amount of a hazardous substance designated by the EPA that, if released, requires immediate federal notification. Each material has its own RQ threshold. Know your cargo and know the thresholds before you roll. Next question. What does the RQ designation on a shipping paper mean? The shipment contains a hazardous substance in a quantity at or above the EPA reportable quantity, triggering notification requirements if spilled. If you see RQ on the shipping paper, a release of that material requires immediate reporting. No delays. Let's keep going. Where is parking a hazmat vehicle prohibited in Colorado, consistent with federal rules? Near open fires, within 300 feet of a bridge, tunnel, or building, in a populated area without attendants and near crowds. When in doubt, keep moving until you find a safe, compliant location to stop. Next point. What are the attendance requirements for a vehicle carrying Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives? The vehicle must be attended at all times by the driver or a qualified representative who is aware of the hazard and able to move the vehicle. With the most dangerous explosives, there is no such thing as an unattended vehicle, not even briefly. Let's continue. What routes must a hazmat driver use in Colorado for certain dangerous materials? Designated hazmat routes approved by CDOT and local authorities. Certain tunnels and roads may be restricted or require permits, especially in the Denver metro area. Plan your route before you load. Discovering a restriction mid-trip creates dangerous situations. Next question. What tunnel restrictions apply to hazmat vehicles in Colorado? The Eisenhower-Johnson Tunnel on I-70 prohibits certain hazmat loads including explosives and flammable gases and requires advance permits for others. The Eisenhower-Johnson Tunnel is one of the highest traffic hazmat restriction points in the state. Know the rules before you approach it. Let's move on. What is the Colorado requirement for hazmat vehicles using the I-70 mountain corridor during peak periods? Hazmat vehicles may be subject to chain laws, weather closures, and designated travel times, especially during winter operations as directed by CDOT and the Colorado State Patrol. I-70 through the mountains is one of the most challenging hazmat corridors in the country. Preparation is everything. Continuing. What pre-trip inspection items are specific to a hazmat vehicle in Colorado? Verify placards match shipping papers, check for leaks on tanks and containers, confirm emergency equipment and ERG are present, and inspect all valves and closures on the cargo. A thorough pre-trip inspection is not a suggestion, it's your legal obligation and your first line of safety. Next point. What fire extinguisher rating is required on a CDL hazmat vehicle? At minimum, a 10 BC rated extinguisher or 2 5 BC extinguishers in the cab and accessible to the driver. Check your extinguisher at every pre-trip. An expired or undersized extinguisher is a violation and a liability. Let's keep going. What does a white square-on-point diamond with a black propeller symbol indicate? Radioactive material, Class 7. Radioactive placards are unmistakable by design. Respect the distance and handling protocols at all times. Next question. What does a black and white striped placard with the number 9 indicate? Class 9, miscellaneous hazardous material. Class 9 is broad but still regulated. Don't underestimate a material just because it's in the miscellaneous category. Let's continue. What does an orange placard with the word EXPLOSIVES indicate? The vehicle is carrying Class 1 explosive materials. Bright orange means maximum caution. Give these vehicles extra space on the road. Next point. What is the definition of bulk packaging in hazmat regulations? A single container with a capacity of 119 gallons or more for liquids, 882 pounds or more for solids, or 882 pounds water capacity or more for gases. Bulk versus non-bulk is a key distinction that determines packaging, labeling, and placarding requirements. Let's move on. What is the definition of non-bulk packaging in hazmat? A container with capacity less than 119 gallons for liquids, less than 882 pounds for solids, and less than 882 pounds water capacity for gases. Memorize both thresholds. The exam will test your ability to distinguish between the two. Continuing. What is the compatibility rule when loading different hazmat materials together? Certain hazmat classes must be kept separated due to dangerous reactions. For example, explosives cannot be loaded with corrosives and poisons must be kept away from food items. Incompatible materials together can cause fires, explosions, or toxic releases. Segregation rules save lives. Next question. What does a driver do if instructed to transport incompatible hazmat in the same vehicle? Refuse the load. Regulations prohibit transporting incompatible materials that could react dangerously together. A driver is never obligated to accept an unsafe or illegal load. Know your rights and your responsibilities. Let's keep going. What is the Colorado penalty for a CDL driver operating with a hazmat load without the proper endorsement? Federal and state fines, license disqualification, and potential criminal charges depending on the material transported. Operating without the proper endorsement is not a technicality, it's a serious violation with serious consequences. Next point. What is the maximum federal civil penalty per day per violation for hazmat violations? Up to $84,107 per violation per day for serious violations, and up to $196,192 if the violation results in death, serious injury, or property destruction. These are not small fines. Hazmat compliance is not just a safety issue, it's a financial one too. Let's continue. What is a security plan and who must have one under federal hazmat rules? A written plan required for carriers of select high-consequence dangerous goods that addresses personnel security, en route security, and shipment information security. Your security plan is a living document. Keep it updated and make sure all relevant personnel know it. Next question. What are high-consequence dangerous goods, HCDG, that require a security plan? Materials that could cause mass casualties or catastrophic harm if used as a weapon, including certain explosives, toxic inhalation hazards, and radioactive materials. If your cargo could be weaponized, you need a security plan. No exceptions. Let's move on. What should a hazmat driver do if they believe their shipment has been tampered with? Do not move the vehicle, notify law enforcement and the carrier immediately, and follow the security plan. A tampered hazmat shipment is a potential terrorist threat. Treat it with that level of seriousness. Continuing. What is the FAST program and how does it relate to Colorado hazmat carriers? Free and Secure Trade is a CBP program allowing pre-approved carriers expedited border crossings, relevant for Colorado carriers transporting hazmat to and from Mexico or Canada. If your routes include international crossings, fast enrollment can save significant time and reduce compliance friction. Next point. What must a Colorado hazmat driver do when crossing into a neighboring state with their load? Comply with both the federal hazmat regulations and any specific state regulations of the state being entered, including route restrictions and permit requirements. Federal law is your baseline, but every state adds its own layer. Research each state before you cross the line. Let's keep going. What is the purpose of the orange section of the North American Emergency Response Guidebook? To provide a list of the most dangerous materials requiring immediate isolation and evacuation distances in case of a spill or fire. The orange section is your go-to in the first minutes of an emergency. Know how to navigate it quickly. Next question. What does the green section of the Emergency Response Guidebook contain? Initial isolation and protective action distances for hazmat spills, especially for toxic inhalation hazard materials.